welcome back. So the last two videos I spoke on risk, trying to highlight risk in the workplace from a contractual compliance quality standpoint and not just a safety aspect, because a lot of folks think risk and safety only, but there's a lot of different things that can happen inside and outside a company that could cause issues, right? So those are the risks to look at. Safety, great, but also look at quality compliance, how it'll impact your customer, your client as well. All right, so now that you've identified all that, there's a few ways to handle them. Primarily four, right? So you've got avoid, you've got mitigate, you've got transfer, and you have accept. If you can, avoid is the best way to go, because you are eliminating that risk from possibility of occurrence. So that is the best way to go. It may not always be possible, but if you can remove that risk from the equation, great. That is the best way to go, and that is the avoidance. Let's see, next one we could talk about. Let's talk mitigation. So you can't avoid it. You have it. It's there. So how do you mitigate it? There's different ways you can mitigate it. It depends on the risk. It depends on the company and what it is. You are putting controls or steps, actions, checks, something in place to ensure that that risk doesn't become a problem. So through some action, you are mitigating the risk, which essentially means you are minimizing it. It's still there. It's still a problem that might occur, but you're trying to minimize the impact as much as possible. You want it to be zero. Transfer. Let's talk transfer. So I talked a little bit about that in the last video. Transferring is great sometimes, but your customer and client may not care that you're giving it to someone else. You may transfer that to a subcontractor, to a vendor, depending on what it is. To me, it's always more risk, because you're bringing in another party, another person, another company that you have to monitor yourself to ensure that they're doing what they need to for you, for your customer or client. So transferring may be okay. Doing an assessment, you may find the cost savings in transferring, whatever it may be. That's a risk. If you're transferring work or something to another party, it may save you money. I don't know. I've always felt that it may end up costing you more in the long run, but there are times where you do an assessment and the return on investment is there by giving it out to another party. But that risk is still there, whether you transfer it to them or not, and you're still going to be held accountable in the end, most of the time. And the last one is accept. There's times where the risk is there. There's really not much you can do about it. You've assessed it, and you've determined that you're going to accept the possibility of that risk occurring. Regardless, it has a low impact. It doesn't really affect you, hopefully, when you accept it. But those are the four primary methods to handle a risk when you identify it. And you could handle that. Those four ways go for safety, for quality, for really any type of risk. That's how you manage risks. I always try to go for avoidance if you can, especially if we're talking safety, from a safety aspect. When folks are talking about having PPE, the protective gear, that's the last line of defense. eliminating the risk, and then controlling the risk are the better ways to go. So finding ways to avoid is preferable, but not every business has methods that could work to avoid. So you have to find ways to minimize through mitigation or the other methods. All right, so those are the primary ways to handle risks. And again, depends by each company, each service, what they're doing. They have to be looked at individually and assessed. All right.